Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And welcome to Monday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. So I finally got the chance to re-watch Black Adam on digital this morning because I finally have access to it out here in Cyprus. The biggest compliment I can pay Black Adam is it reminded me of a DC animated movie. But there's no question about it, and you actually don't need to have to work in the industry to understand the problems with Black Adam, because there's no question about it. The heart of Black Adam was left on the cutting room floor, and that's undebatable. It's obvious. There is something. There's lots of things missing in this movie. It's a quickly put together movie to get a quick result. And there's no question about that. And we've been here with the DC Extended Universe, with Batman vs. Superman, with Justice League, with David Ayer's Suicide Squad. It's been happening again, and again. I say release the rock cut of Black Adam. Or, whatever you call the director. I forgot his surname. But the point is, there's lots missing in this film. So clearly the studio felt when they looked at this film, I think this film probably was originally around 2.5 hours. I think that's definitely the case. So they cut a lot out of this movie and they decided they didn't like a lot of the stuff that had been shot. That's obvious to me. That might not be true. It's just my theory. And what you get ultimately, they've put this film together to be a very, very quick, popcorn chomping, exciting CGI fest, but nothing more than that. I did enjoy the film, as I said. I wouldn't have given it the ultimate compliment of comparing it to a DC animated movie. But the film does have problems. It really does. I think Atom Smasher is amazing. The young woman who can do the strong hurricanes. I keep on forgetting her bloody name. She was awesome as well. I want to see more of both of them. I think they're great. I think the best things, two things about this film are Pierce Brosnan's Dr. Fate, and Sarah Shahi was absolutely fantastic as Thomas. Is it Thomas something Thomas? What? I'm crap with names. Arrest me. What can I do? So I thought, they were the heart of this film. But there's another heart of this film that we've never seen. And that's came across to me as I was in bed. I woke up, I knew I'd have it on my Prime. So I said, right, I'm going to watch this morning, not going to get up. And I watched it and I was getting a lot out of it. I enjoyed it like I did when I saw it in the cinema, in the movie theatre. But they've cut a lot out of this movie. And this is why the reviews are bad. And watching it, like in the cold light of day and not being a biased DC fan, I can understand why critics didn't like the movie. On analysis, if you analyse this film, it's obvious why a critic wouldn't like this. And I don't think there was any agendas with this film. I just think that this was a quickly made film. Again, it was Emmerich and Hamada being very, very lazy. But also they allowed The Rock to employ the filmmakers that he wanted to employ. The writers, the director, that was all The Rock. The Rock literally made this film. The Rock's people made this film, and that is where the problem is. You've got Amelia Harcourt cameoing in this film, but not Shazam. Why would you have Amelia Harcourt cameoing in this film, but not Shazam, when literally this is part of the Shazam universe? That doesn't make sense whatsoever. So clearly James Gunn had something to do with this film. Maybe it was part of the restructuring even back then. Maybe he knew he was going to become co-chair of DC Studios with Peter Safran. Maybe not. I'm asking the question. I love Amelia Harcourt. She was good. I liked her cameo. It was very quick, but it's a cameo after all. But ultimately, why is she there and Shazam isn't? And even if we jump to the post-credit scene with Superman, right, we've seen in the film that Black Adam is now a more softer, gentler character. He's become an anti-hero. So what is Amanda Waller actually afraid of? She's told him not to leave the country, right? You know, she's basically said, don't leave, you know, what is it, Kardak or something like that, right? And, you know, it's kind of weird because he's not really as much of a threat now. I can understand why she's kind of frightened of him, and then you kind of see the Superman cameo and you think, why is Superman there? Why is he there to threaten him? Is he there to ask him to join the Justice League? It's a bit weird. Maybe he's told Amanda Waller he's going to go there to threaten him, but maybe Superman and the Justice League need Black Adam's help. Now, whether any of this comes to fruition, by the way, whether this post-credit scene has any kind of, you know, anything to do with the future of DC live action, we'll have to wait and see, considering we don't even know if the DCEU and the DC Universe are even connected. I suspect it is a rebrand and there is some kind of connection, but we'll have to wait and see. Nobody really knows. So listen, it's a very entertaining movie. For example, the young kid, who is the analogy of Black Adam's son. So, you know, the character that Sarah Shahi plays, she has a son. He's really good. He's into superheroes. He's got pictures of comics, posters. He's a really good character. He's one of the characters I really enjoyed in this movie. But, so you've got this kind of situation where he's trying to, basically, this is a rip-off of T2, John Connor and the Terminator, where John Connor's trying to teach him a better way. It's kind of a clumsier way of doing it, so it doesn't really work within this film because, as I say, the heart of this film is on the cutting room floor. So clearly there probably was a better relationship between this kid and Black Adam, but most of it's been cut out. You see, these days, most comic book movies are around 2.5 hours. And if they're less, not that there's a rule that a bad, you know, just because you're a 2-hour movie, you're a bad movie. I'm not saying that. But it's not really the length they finish up at. So I believe, you know, I think if a comic book movie is around 2 hours, 5 minutes, 2 hours, even under that, like Justice League, they've cut a lot of shit out of this movie. And what doesn't help this movie at all is that the editing is so bad, and you can tell that the editing's been rushed, and you can tell that they cut a hell of a lot out of this movie. And of course, no one's ever going to admit that. But I think even as a fan, even if you adored this movie, you know, you must admit that a lot's been cut and the editing isn't great. And one of the issues with this film as well, at the beginning of the film, they try and tell us a semblance of an origin story. You know, like in the first Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Rings, you get the narration and it's great and it goes on and it's fantastic. Well, here, they're trying to lead you into a false sense of security. Now, narratively, this is a good thing to do, but you have to execute it properly. Here, it's not executed properly. So they don't want you to really know that the little kid isn't Black Adam, isn't Teth Adam. Now, in reality, it's his kid. But they don't want to show you that. So they kind of shoot it at angles and you kind of see... The thing is, you see The Rock at an angle, but it's obviously him. You can tell it's him. One thing about this film is purposefully predictable, and that doesn't help it within its first 10 minutes. You know when the guy goes, where's my reward for finding this diamond? And the guy goes, let me take you and get your reward. And we know he's going to fucking push him off the edge. I think he stabs him as well, but it's obvious. So this film is so utterly predictable. So it tries to kind of hide the fact that that's the kid, that's Black Adam's kid and not Black Adam, but it doesn't do it well. And by not revealing everything at the beginning of the film when they're doing the narration and the origin, it loses something when you lose that moment. And then we go to modern day Kardak. And then it gets a little bit confusing if you don't really know what's going on, because you're thinking, all right, 1 minute we're in the past. We didn't really, you know, me personally, I'm watching that and I'm thinking, what the hell's going on here? What, you know, they've just cut that And so what happened there then? It's not really explained because it's not executed properly. You can do it in a better way where they don't tell you that that's not Black Adam, right? Later on in the film, because the whole idea is they don't want to reveal that until the bit where Black Adam tries to save the kid, stops the bullet, but knocks the kid out, which basically wakes Black Adam up to himself. He realizes he's too dangerous and he gives himself up. It's a great movie it's a great moment within the movie, but again, the directing and the editing is not good enough. So when that happens, you really have to be in the Wide Awake Club to realize that Black Adam stopped the bullet, but he's actually hurt the kid, and this is why he gives himself up. But they don't really make a point of it, and you do need to make a point of these things. So unless you're one of these people who's alert during the whole movie, and because I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm watching a movie, I start to daydream, especially when what's going on around me isn't as interesting as it should be. So if you're not concentrating, you're thinking, hang on a minute, why is he actually giving himself up? Throughout the movie, he was proud that he's not peaceful, that he doesn't surrender, that he's violent, that he kills, and all of a sudden he's giving himself up. But it's literally the reason for that is because he attempts to save the kid, he saves the kid, but he also knocks him out. That's the point there. And it doesn't work because it isn't executed in the right way. And as I keep on saying on this channel, it's all about execution. But, so what, at the end of the day, right, so ultimately we have one of the best things about this movie, which is Dr. Fate. Pierce Brosnan is fantastic. One of my favourite, CG VFX moments is when you see like multiple versions of Dr. Fate. And, Hawkman does the same thing afterwards. I actually cried when he dies. I think it's great. And I think it works. Well, it's not great that he dies, but it's a very compelling moment. But I was thinking about this, and this is another reason why I think it's obvious that most of this movie ended up on the cutting room floor, because there's other scenes that, make the relationship between Hawkman and Dr. Fate more relevant and more emotional and more compelling, but they don't do enough character work in this film. Because again, probably all this character work was done, but was left on the cutting room floor. And there lies the problem with this movie. Because as I say, once you get to the end of this movie, there's no way you don't realise there's more to this film than meets the freaking eye. Let's talk about the villain. Now, critics didn't like the villain, and you don't blame them. If you're not a comic book person, you don't really get Sabbac. But really, it wasn't handled very well. The ancestor of the king and all of that, that actor's performance wasn't great. Sabbac as a VFX CGI character is excellent. Literally, what you've got here for Black Adam is an end boss when you're a gamer. If you're gaming, you know all about an end boss battle. Basically, this is just a typical end boss battle. And it doesn't really last very long, and it's over before it begins. And yes, he does kill Dr. Fate, which is utterly compelling, but do you really believe in this villain's strength to be able to kill Dr. Fate? And they also cut a post-credit scene when somebody else picks up Dr. Fate's helmet. In this situation, at the end of this movie, it actually vanishes. So, who knows what's happening with Dr. Fate in the future, if there is a future of this very franchise, and nobody knows. So I kind of like the bit when he sits on the throne and then he breaks the throne, and I like the bit between him and Atom Smasher in the end. It was great working with you, and kind of Black Adam gives him a compliment, and then Atom Smasher tries to say something else and he goes, don't push it. I like that bit. There's potential between those two characters. So there is some really good things in this movie, but the problem with this film is, as a movie, it was cut together in a bad way. Too much has been cut out of it, and there lies the problem. You can see within the film that the intent of this film was good, and their hearts were in the right places. But you can tell there was huge studio meddling within this movie, as there was with Birds of Prey, by the way. but that's the studio's fault in the first place. You don't allow Margot Robbie to do whatever she wants with Birds of Prey. You don't allow Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to do whatever he wants with Black Adam and get his own people to make the film. So ultimately, what do I think with what's actually put together? With the film I actually saw? So I'll put to one side my issues with the movie and say I enjoyed it. It was fun, but there's always something in the back of my head saying there's something missing here. There's something truly missing. I want you, as usual, to have your say. What did you think of Black Adam? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? And quickly before I go, James Gunn has made another quote on Twitter responding to a fan saying that him and Peter are proud to be shepherding next year's movies and looking forward to next year's, not next year's, but the DC Universe movies that they're going to be a part of beyond that. Beyond that. That's interesting, isn't it? Interesting choice of words. Beyond the DCEU. So, still, we're no closer to knowing if the DCEU and DC Universe are still connected. But I do think within these statements that James is making on social media, we're very close to finding out if the DC Extended Universe and DC Universe are going to be connected. That is going to be a very exciting day. But let me just say one more thing. He said he's proud to shepherd next year's DCEU movies. Well, let's be honest, James. If next year's movies are so great, then Walter Hamada, Ann Sarnoff and Toby Emmerich wouldn't be out of a job now, would they? They'd still be working. Walter Hamada would be the president of DC Films. We probably wouldn't be getting a DC Studios because if it was successful, there would be no need for a DC Studios. Personally, I think there's always been a need for a DC Studios and an independent studio, independent body, making these DC projects and movies. But ultimately, James, if basically next year's movies can't be that great, or the people whose names are on the Black Adam credits, by the way, you know, Walter Hamada and Toby Emmerich wouldn't be out of a job. So it'll be interesting how good or great next year's DC movies will actually be. This has been Monday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wife. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you again in the next video. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.